Thanks, Grant. So we should start with introductions. I'll introduce myself, so will staff from the county and co-members, and then for everyone else on the call, you can introduce yourself once we get to the interactive portion with your first share, say who you are and where you work, but we'll make this quick. My name is Rose Newberry. I am the consultant project manager from JUDEC, who is responsible for writing the plan and running a lot of outreach events such as this. I'll hand it off to Jenna.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Jenna Kay. I work for Clark County in the Community Planning Department and am also staff support to the Commission on Aging. So thank you all for taking an hour out of your day to join us. And then in terms of Commission on Aging members, Chuck, do you want to introduce yourself? We may have one other COA member joining, but I don't see him on yet. So Chuck, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Jenna. I'm Chuck Green with the Commission on Aging, and I've been the one advocating for this Aging Readiness Plan update the last couple of years and helped write the RFP that eventually hired JUDEC. So I want to thank everybody for joining us on this focus group.
Awesome. Anyone else from COA on?
Not yet. If Mel joins, he's the other Commission on Aging member who was going to try to join this session.
I'll move next. The next slide, Grant. All right, we started with some project background. So like Chuck said, this is an update. So the original Age Readiness Plan was approved in 2012. It was developed off a lot of feedback just like this, and we're trying to build off that and have a collaborative development once again. It's a really unique plan in that it's the county, so it's county-wide. There are many, many implementers, not just the county, also jurisdictions, transit providers, service providers. So it needs to really be a collaborative effort to make sure that once it's done, lots of parties in the county can take it forward and make sure it achieves its vision. And the original plan included 5 chapters: living longer and healthier, housing opportunities, transportation and mobility, supporting your health and well-being and independence, and the important role of seniors in our community are turning silver into gold. This update will include an additional chapter on emergency management. In the 2012 plan, there were 91 strategies, as well as annual progress reports by COA, tracking the progress of the plan and occasionally adding new ideas and new strategies to the plan itself. Next slide. So again, like I said, this unique plan, we'll talk about how it's implemented and what we're going to do with all this feedback. So the ARP does a couple of things. ARP is short for Age Readiness Plan. It highlights best practices and recommendations for local jurisdictions. So we have code recommendations and streets, like I'm going to deal with street sign text, just some really important but foundational recommendations to be implemented across the county. It sets standards for community involvement and monitoring. So thinking about how we talk to community members, how you advertise in what languages, and so forth. And then lastly, I think most importantly, it connects a lot of dots. It connects planning, advocacy, and service providers. If you think about someone who cannot drive, getting themselves to the doctors, you have to think about them getting out of their door, which is building standards, to the transit stop, which is going to be sidewalks and maintenance. And then, of course, how often the bus comes, so the transit provider. So you can kind of see how a simple getting to the doctor is going to involve more than one agency. We have to think about it holistically. So this plan really starts connecting those dots. So those things that live in silos, that they communicate, they connect, and they work for everyone. Next slide. So why the update? I'm sure Chuck can add here too. Something that's really important is addressing natural and human caused hazards. We've seen wildfires in this region, the heat dome, which kills primarily older adults, and of course the COVID pandemic. So we're going to incorporate what we learned from COVID, both from the emergency lockdown stage, but also how it changed service providing. What's happening now as we adjust into, I hate to call it a new normal, but you know, what life after booster shots maybe. And then also there's been major changes since 2012, notably in housing and the provision of ADUs, granny flats, other housing options, transportation certainly, both expanded options, the rise of Uber and Lyft is a micro transit, and then changes in healthcare such as the ACA, Medicare, et cetera. It's also a lot of people are reaching retirement age right now. The boomer generation is here and starting to retire, and really creating a diverse group of seniors. A 60-year-old, 65-year-old is much, much different than a 100-year-old, but they're both older adults that are both trying to serve in this plan. So this really large, diverse cohort of older adults. And the most important thing is in this update, we're really monitoring our progress. So what's worked since 2012? What needs to be readjusted, and how do we monitor that in the future to make sure that this plan is working? And then if the world keeps changing at this pace, how do we adjust the plan to those changes? Next slide. And next one. So why are we all here? You're all experts in transportation in the region, which we can talk about more in transportation, but that's our primary goal today. We really want to talk about your goals. What should Clark County look like in 2032 in regards to transportation and aging? What programs and assets should we build upon that you're aware of in your work that are really important? What new policies do we need to develop? And what hurdles are you facing in your work? So really talking through where the county needs to go, how we want to get there, and maybe what speed bumps are along the way. And I think we have one more slide. Yep. So I want to talk about where we are in the process, just I think to edify everyone. So we're right here in focus group meetings. About kind of early in the beginning of the process, but we've done some data gathering. We started interviewing stakeholders, implementers already. Now it happened throughout the plan to make sure that it's something they can actually use. And we've also done a lot of document review. So reading the old plan, there's also area plan from ASWD. There's just a lot of information to get our hands around. We're doing a lot of reading. And now we're talking to you to figure out our vision and really the direction of this plan. We'll go back over the holidays, do a lot of strategy evaluation. So we're looking at the existing strategies, maybe things you recommend, and trying to work them into the plan, see how they can be measured, we implement them. And then early in the new year, we'll bring that work back to the broader public, including yourselves, and do these deep dive working sessions to make sure the plan's going in the direction. We'll have a draft plan, which again will be seen by the public, and then a final plan later in 2023. So with that, I will share my screen and we'll do our activity, which I can walk through. All right, can everyone see my screen? Perfect. So it's a two-parter today. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to open it up. We're just going to talk about end states. What makes a community age friendly? So this sample is easy to get around. Thinking about the end goal we want to have as this plan. Maybe it's high frequency transit or everything's accessible. Once we've done that for about 5 to 10 minutes, we're going to move on and we'll talk about those goals, but also maybe solutions and hurdles to them. So I open the floor up to all of you. If you want to unmute yourselves, put in the chat what you think will make Clark County age friendly over the next 10 years.
I think safety is a huge concern to make an age friendly community.
Yeah, do you mean, I think you're absolutely right in a lot of ways. Do you mean safety from crime? Do you mean safety from tripping hazards, all safety, perception of safety?
All aspects of safety.
Awesome. All right, anyone else have an end state of what would make a community age friendly?
A dementia-friendly community, accessible to folks with dementia or other cognitive impairments.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
This is Chuck. I would add to that a transportation system that's understandable to all users, including those who have visual impairments, those who might be under 5 and can't read words, but they can definitely understand symbols, and other groups kind of in between.
Absolutely.
I would also say accessible public spaces and community spaces, parks, community centers, gathering locations.
All right, anyone else? And also type in the chat if you would prefer that.
Sorry, I'm having some distractions, so I apologize. But I think one of the things that for all is just one of the things we need to look at. Everything we do needs to be looked at from the lens of all. So often we look at it from, you know, like a Pareto principle, do it for the 80 and the 20% will survive whatever we do. And that just isn't going to work in the future for us.
Sure, yeah, universal design.
Access to healthcare.
Yeah, it's a big one. All right. Anyone else, or we can, if not, we can just talk about these and do a deeper dive on these.
I think I would like to add one. So where my mind goes would be better coordination between county departments. And so what I'm thinking of is sort of communication and planning between maybe public health and public works. So you're aligning the needs and the importance of building sidewalks and stuff like that, and work is not as siloed. I think that could go a long way in helping the county become an age-friendly community.
Yeah. Fantastic. Anyone else, or do we want to start diving into these? All right, if anyone once we get through these, if anyone has any additional ideas, we can absolutely add them to the list. This is the fun part. All right, so you'll see that your goals are now populated here, and we have a few pages to go through. So we talk about the goal that we stated, thinking about solutions to that goal, and then hurdles. And this is just an example so we can see where we're going. That's kind of the route we're talking about today. So if you know of any, solutions could either be your ideas, or if you know of existing programs or models that work well in the county or otherwise, we'd love to hear that. So first we'll talk about safety, either solutions or hurdles.
I'm wondering, and Linda, I think you brought this up, this topic with safety, because I think of safety in a couple of ways. One is the safety of not getting run over by cars and trucks and buses. But I'm also thinking of safety as far as security, so that if I'm walking down a street at night, that it's well lit, I feel safe and secure in that environment. So that's my suggestion, is if we could treat safety in a couple of different ways.
Yes, I would agree with you, Chuck. We need to look at a number of aspects relating to safety.
But I heard lighting solution.
Yes, well lit crosswalks, well lit and visible crosswalks.
In addition to that, ADA accessible crosswalks, et cetera, curbs, those pieces.
Yep. As someone who walks around my neighborhood with a stroller, that is very important. And our scribes will get this down.
I would also say, again, kind of community spaces, cooling shelters, warming shelters, severe weather, anything related to that is a safety concern for folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that in Portland during the heat dome, that metro was free to get to a polling center. I thought was really important. Bill wrote in the chat, including auditory signals and talking about accessible built features. Yeah. Think about the visually impaired, also the people that are distracted on their phones. I think auditory signals really help both of those groups. Has anyone seen hurdles to implementing these things in their work?
Money.
Yes,
We need
money.
RTC to give out more money.
Wish we had more to give out. Yeah, it's always funding, so you have to set priorities and be really clear on where your priorities lie.
Mm-hmm. Staff time and capacity is another hurdle. Yeah. The classics. Anyone see
the other-
pushback in any of these?
Yeah, I would add in that accessibility, it's kind of a wayfinding theme, but a kind of a navigation capability to get people to these accessible and secure crossing locations, especially for visually impaired. I was on C-Tran yesterday. They had a couple of, it was by the School for the Blind, and they had some ambassadors introducing some of the students there to the C-Tran system. And it was fascinating, but I can imagine getting to and from C-Tran on your own might be pretty scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, along that, Chuck, one of the solutions is I think we need to do a better job of letting people know about travel training and having accessibility to that.
Yeah, someone brought up the ambassador program yesterday at another focus group meeting, and everyone got really excited. Hadn't heard about it before, and it really perked a lot of ears. All right, any other thoughts on safety? All right. Dementia friendly. So any potential solutions you know about that exist or ideas you have, and then any hurdles to dementia friendly communities?
Well, dementia friendly is actually a program that exists in Washington that it's the whole goal of it is to help build dementia friendly communities. And that includes things like older adult housing that is like specifically designed for folks with dementia, and just a lot of dementia specific stuff. So just like looking through those resources would be useful when looking at dementia friendly. But then also kind of how we talked about the literacy piece in a few ways, making sure that things are accessible through not just through the written word, but images and signage that is understandable and navigable, and also behavioral training for first responders and other groups, so that when they engage with someone with dementia, they can kind of recognize the differences between somebody who has issues with communication or those types of things, and how best to assist those individuals.
Awesome. So we'll look at that end of that those program recommendations. Now I'd imagine a hurdle here, but everyone please jump in. It's just education about the importance of these things and how they maybe tie in to other goals. And the additional staff time and funding issues we've spoken about.
So are we on hurdles for dementia-friendly communities?
Yes.
Is that one of so I'm a a licensed engineer, and one of the things I do is design street systems with the manual and uniform traffic control devices, and they're all uniform signs, but they're all set up for people who can read a sign from a certain distance. They can read English. But if I don't think there's a manual for a dementia-friendly signage system. And I know we could use a lot of help with that. And so I think that's one that I see is just the ability of having some standards or guidance how to design in that environment.
Sure. Yeah. I think, you know, obviously we'll look into the resources that Michaela brought up, but yeah, I would say that most of the best practices I look at in planning don't have this lens to them, and it's going to be something to absolutely add to the plan.
I think the biggest hurdle on this one is just getting the right stakeholders involved and even figuring out what tools each stakeholder would need, because it's just something that we haven't focused on.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other notes on dementia friendly?
Just a hurdle is that it's simply just not a cool, fun topic. You know, it's not something that people are like, woohoo, let's talk about that. So it's something that's kind of easily forgotten, which it's important. So just like awareness of it as an issue and how it impacts and the different ways it can impact somebody's life and ability to navigate their community. So I think just honestly raising awareness that it's something to take into account is a hurdle we have to overcome.
I've already heard a lot of links between this and, you know, other language barriers, and there's definitely a way to up that awareness, but also just really link it into a lot of other goals. All right. I think we're ready to move to, and this I think is so similar, an accommodating transit system for everyone. So kind of moving beyond dementia, what would make the transit system more accommodating to a broader group of folks?
So I'm assuming we're talking all modes rather than just public transportation with this, or is this just on C-Tran and other shuttle type services?
I'm happy to talk all modes because you usually take another mode to get to a transit stop. I think it's worth just being accommodating across the landscape.
So I think part of what I would look at is we're starting to get into trip planning and the first mile, last mile, to use a transit term. I'd like to see more holistic route or trip planning that factors in somebody's age or physical capabilities of making that trip, rather than just saying walk 1.25 miles to this stop, take this route to the Vine, etc. Something that factors in how they get there with a physical mobility or some other type of impairment.
Yeah. It's more customized trip planning.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly on the public transit side, I would say expanded hours and like expanded service options, which I know is not as easy as it sounds. I'm not trying to say just like, you know, make it happen, but truly if folks could get to more places or at more extended hours, like folks who have dialysis early in the morning or late at night, for example, those extended hours and services would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm all for just funding the heck out of transit.
And on that same sort of vein, rural access. It's not all Vancouver and urban based. We have some really rural areas in this county.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as our population grows in this region, there's not so much consideration, yet we hear from the public they want expanded geographic area of coverage for their transit system.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like, you know, like C-Tran launched the Current in the last year. And then there's the North County Shuttle. I think expansion of those and making information available, how to connect with those, I think it's going to be extremely important. Now, the issue I have with the current is not the current, but it's, you need an app. And
Mhm.
a lot of, as we found out on the Commission on Aging, especially during COVID, a lot of our constituencies are not savvy as far as tech savvy. And in a lot of instances, they don't have the broadband or bandwidth connection to the internet to even use the app.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I can just touch on that, they can call the customer service line and book a ride on the current. They don't have to just use the app.
Great, thanks, Sean.
I was trying to find out how to use transit and could not explain it without using the app. I was like, I know, probably can use bus, you know, have a phone, Dad. I can't help you.
Well, that's one of the reasons we wanted to keep the phone line as an option because especially in our aging in place community, we knew that there was going to be some struggles. One of the reasons that we continue to do some on-site stuff in regards to hot passes, if somebody can come to us, we can get them pointed in the right direction. I would say, just to add to the rural transportation piece, one of the struggles that we sort of exist in right now is that the C-Trans service area is very specific to our PTIC. So in order for us to create a taxing district or to annex certain portions of areas that are growing but aren't inside the public transit area, it's a pretty robust process to do that, very public process, and requires some asks for an additional tax base for them to accept that when we do that. So there's a lot that goes into it, but we are working through some of those because we're seeing a lot of growth, really outside the 179th area, sort of mid-county between really above 500, above Patton Parkway. And so we know there's a lot of holes that are developing within the county that don't have public transit. And so those are definitely on our radar.
Awesome.
Is there a way? Sorry.
Go ahead, Bill.
I'm just curious, is there a way for C-Tran to support services without providing the service itself? So could there be better connections with, say, Community in Motion that help them provide their services, such as the North County Shuttle service?
Yeah, there definitely is. I think especially on the pass-through money that we have, we have the ability, if there's enough resource there, to talk about that and see how much more money we can bring in. And in fact, we're having that conversation right now with the tribe in regards to service between where our current service ends and where they may have some opportunities along the reservation. So that would also be a pass-through. So all of those things are options for us.
Thank you.
Along that same line, I was thinking, a potential solution could be to expand the shuttle out so that we are running concurrently, Sean, so we could get people to C-Tran at much more specific times so that they could connect in. It's not an easy solution and all of that, but it is a solution to help with that micro transit out there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The micro transit piece for us was really how do we sort of, I don't think it was necessarily for us to drive a bunch of ridership. It was to sort of find opportunity areas where there were either historically disproportionately impacted neighborhoods or lack of transportation in some rural-ish areas that just needed to connect to the network. And then once they were on the network, they were fine. And I think that's always sort of been our goal, is how do we sort of marry those two things together without putting a fixed route in the middle of North County that, we've already got one of those with the 47 that a couple times a day generates some ridership up to Yackle, but wouldn't be a good business decision for us to run that all day. So how do we sort of bridge the gap on that? And I think there's tons of opportunities and ways for us to manage that. And I definitely appreciate all the partnerships because that's been huge for us. That's helped us sort of bridge some of those gaps already. And we're very thankful for that.
One of the things that I see as a potential solution to that is running current service in the city of Battleground and then advertising sort of Community in Motion's North County Shuttle as a way to get into Battleground, and then you have access to the current to move around within Battleground. And that could be a transportation thing that fits within sort of CCAN's scope for those those people with disabilities, those populations in North County, and also introducing them how easy it can be to use C-Tran for folks who are traditionally not using C-Tran because there are, like you said, no fixed route, or there's one fixed route service that operates in North County. That's sort of how I envision things and would like to see things progress in the future.
Yeah, I agree. So some things we struggle with too are even if we wanted to put a fixed route in some portions of North County, the vehicle type that we would need would not accommodate that. Battleground's a perfect example that we could really get to the train tracks, but we really can't get to the neighborhoods beyond that east of the rail line because it's just not conducive for even a 30-foot bus. We need to. What we've been doing is sort of reinvesting in our fleet and finding out if we need smaller vehicles or what's the right size vehicle we need to help make the service the best it can be. And that's sort of where the current came from was, at any given time, we could pick up, 1 to 6 people, drop them off wherever they need to and let them kind of ride the system from there.
That's our same struggle figuring out what vehicle we're buying for North County still. So.
Yeah, with some of the manufacturers that have disappeared or lack of chassis, it's been almost impossible for us to figure out what vehicles we're going to buy, period.
Yeah.
So vehicle choice, supply chain issues.
Yes.
Yeah, part of it is any vehicles that require body on chassis, any chassis that are made, and there's a supply chain issue with them right now. They're being offered to first responders first, as they should. I'm certainly not going to dispute that, but it's created an issue for agencies that are looking for some of those, maybe not large, but larger vehicles, the 25-footers, 24-footers. And there has been a significant price increase. In fact, on the state contract, they asked for a 70% price increase, and I think they settled somewhere with the state around 45 or 50. So there's a lot going on there.
That's terrifying. Glad to know it's not just my broccoli. That's a issue. All right, is there anything else we want to, I think we've gotten some great comments on this. Is there anyone else want to dig into transit for all here? All right, we're going to the next one. Next one is accessible community spaces. So again, solutions, things you've seen, ideas you have, and then the hurdles and why we don't have enough accessible community spaces or what's making them not accessible.
I think one of the unique things that we saw during COVID was cities or municipalities shutting down streets and opening up those as community spaces and removing the cars from the situation. And so it'd be nice to see more of that in local communities within Clark County. And maybe that's not something that they have to implement on a permanent basis. Maybe it could be a rotating, like one Saturday a month, here's our street fair, and we shut everything down and let vendors out into the street, because you just see more vibrance in your community when you remove the cars from the situation and you replace those cars with citizens. So I think that is one way that we can easily create more accessible spaces within our communities.
Yep. We already have the roads. We have a lot of them. Fantastic. You also have a solution or hurdle to accessible community spaces?
I think it's just that transportation lens that most of us have, that I have as the hurdle is, you've got to have affordable way for people to be able to get there and for everybody to have access to whatever that community space is that they want.
So one of the issues I've known in the past with a community space is the availability of restrooms. And it's been an issue when we were planning Turtle Place on the original Vine, because that used to be a C-Tran customer service center down there, and it had restrooms that continually got vandalized. And so we did not plan for anything as far as restrooms on Turtle Place, and actually C-Tran sold off the property to the east that had the old customer service center. So it's finding a way to provide restrooms and those type of relief facilities without or trying to minimize the vandalism potential.
Yeah.
I also think then if there are community spaces, finding ways to actively engage them and make them, usable and make them places that people want to be. So whether that's creating street fairs or concerts or music events, just, oh yeah, Bill, places to sit and rest. Excellent point right there. Excellent point. And then like also pet waste stations, now that we mention it.
Yeah, activating public space, being able to sit and rest, pet waste, absolutely. I think we can forget what who we're leaving out if we don't include pets in our communities.
Also water stations.
Reduce steps and curbs, yeah.
I think there might also be opportunities to explore like cultural education pieces that can be incorporated there, whether it be stories about, the history of the space or, the environment, the nature demographic. I just think that could be really cool. I always enjoy reading those at like monuments and stuff.
Yeah.
You learn about the community you're in.
Absolutely. Now, reasons for people and the activation, materials and design. I think I'm seeing here too. And I think we've had the usual suspects of staff time and resources that people see as a hurdle to these spaces. I heard vandalism. I think safety is an issue in designing public spaces. If anyone else has anything else they want to add to those hurdles?
I don't know about anybody else, but COVID kind of made me a little bit more of a hermit than I was before. So, a challenge is getting people back. I mean, I know people are excited to get out and about, like we see people going out and doing things, but also like the social dynamic of people being comfortable being in shared spaces again and engaging in ways that we haven't in so long.
Yeah, I it's for many folks that are immunocompromised, that are older. But yeah, even if you're not scared, is dusting off those old social bones can be very, very challenging. I think, kind of we can tie it back to the idea of converting streets to accessible community spaces. I think the first thing my family did was one of our parking lots in our community is a farmer's market every Sunday. We did that first. That felt the safest. So thinking about maybe outdoor spaces, especially when the weather's good or we have good jackets. We can move on to universal design, or the idea that everything in our communities, our public spaces, our buses, our sidewalks are built for everyone in mind, all users. There are really good design standards here and manuals, but if anyone else has any other solutions, thinking about universal design or places that's worked well, or any hurdles you've seen in your work to make universal design a priority.
I think a lot of the solutions and hurdles that we included for accessible community spaces will fit into universal design. I sort of see those two going hand in hand.
I do. I think we really kind of had universal design as a solution to community spaces. Yeah. Now we see what other items we have. We have about 5 minutes left.
I would like to just expand on the education comment I threw in chat. And so what I meant by that is providing education to those who are planning these facilities. So I think you have a lot of planners who look like me and Chuck, which is just fine for the most part, but we only provide one aspect, one view of the world. And there's so many other people who need to use these places or take advantage of opportunities there that they just don't have their needs met because people don't think about things outside of their immediate sphere. So providing educational opportunities to planners to sort of broaden their horizons on what unique human experiences are. And with that, also hiring more diverse staff who have those lived experiences.
Yeah, that's it. Also expanding planning to other people as well. Absolutely.
Expanding on that too is when you get down to that list that you're gonna fund or, you know, gonna work on, we all have to do a better job of looking at statistics more than feelings, because that is, you know, not even consciously how we end up with a lot of people who look like Bill and Chuck and, you know, myself even, and not have diversity, because this is what we know and this is what we're comfortable with, and so this is what we know there's a good thing there, so let's go do it. But there could be things that we're just not even putting on the table because we don't have that experience.
Those are good points. Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. It's very true.
That's my mantra. Yep.
So it's a good way to operate, knowing that you don't know everything, and you definitely have blind spots. All right, if we want to move on to access to healthcare, I think we kind of touched a little bit about access, but thinking specifically about getting people to and from appointments, but also I heard dialysis mentioned, and there's the idea that healthcare maybe isn't happening at peak hours. So how do you get people to and from those needs?
Also just having adequate healthcare providers for the area, enough people to serve the number of people we have in our community, including specialty care.
Yeah, not having to outsource it to other communities is a big solution that we need to look at.
Yeah.
It just makes it so difficult for people if they're paying for their own transportation to, gas right now. If you're having to go 40 miles to get your dialysis done, becomes a huge burden 3 times a week. If you're, on the road doing it, it's just much longer. I think another solution is looking at what fully is healthcare, like Medicaid transportation. We can take you to your doctor, but you may or may not be able to stop at a pharmacy on the way home, or any of those type of things. I think we need to look at it a little more holistically.
Yeah. Hurdles I heard is that medical appointments can happen at hours and there's not the service time for that.
For C-Tran, yeah. I mean, dialysis is running 24/7, but the rest of the world's not.
And again, in our human services transportation plan and a lot of work that Jean Ann does with Community in Motion, we've talked about the need for volunteers to help people get access to healthcare, but it's increasingly a challenge to get the volunteer drivers that we need.
Thank you, Linda. I just feel like a broken record whenever I say volunteers, right? There's a hurdle. We need about 50 of them at least in our community. I could put them to work tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else about access to healthcare specifically?
Maybe we could do a better job of mental health access to healthcare for people, especially the elderly. It's still an add-on thought.
So the other thing, my wife is a caregiver for a 74-year-old woman from church. She lives in Battleground at a VHA complex up there. And her issue for access is a couple things. One is what insurance covers. Because a lot of times insurance won't cover the cost of the transportation to get to an appointment.
Yeah.
The other is the kind of a lack of pool of providers that are covered by Medicare. And so that's been a hurdle as well. The benefit, however, is that there's a Medicaid program that is giving her up to 30 hours a week of in-home care, and the in-home care provider can take her to appointments. But you have to get get approval to be in the Medicaid program to do that, which is almost like a bureaucratic minefield to get there.
Yeah.
And I know we said volunteers as a hurdle, but truly any transportation provider outside of CTRAN is a hurdle right now. There's just not enough.
Yeah, so it's just volunteer, but also just professional staffing.
Yes, contracted providers, there's just not enough.
That's one that actually really scares me. I stay up at night, so the lack of providers. All right.
And just coupled with lack of providers, the limited opportunities for the limited access to transportation for people who have specific healthcare needs, like if they need bariatric transportation or need to travel with oxygen or some other like significant medical equipment, like who need like truly specialized transportation to get somewhere. Just that's such a limited resource and, difficult to, it's expensive to use, which that's a barrier.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
I apologize, I have to drop. I have a board meeting in 10 minutes, so.
I appreciate you being here and all your comments. And then please feel reach out to me via email or phone from my invite if you have any other ideas. We'll be reaching out again in the new year for some more opportunities.
And are you going to send this out, Rose, for?
Yeah, all the resources and then the recordings will be on the county website, hopefully by the beginning of December.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean Ann. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Chuck. Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right, in our last 10 minutes, we can talk about our last goal, which is strong and effective communication between county departments, and I probably say service providers too, right? There's a lot of implementers here, and how I think about connecting those folks.
So I'm the one who brought this one up, and I was sort of thinking of Linda might be able to provide more information. And so to put Linda on the spot, what I was thinking of is sort of the work that our Walkability Action Institute was doing and sort of their identified need of sort of not all county departments understand what other county departments are doing is what it seems like. And therefore projects might not be as successful as they could be just because there's not that communication or that working together.
So we recognized there was a need for better communication between county departments, and other cities and Regional Transportation Council. So we participated in the Walkability Action Institute back in May of this year. And since then, we have had monthly meetings amongst our team. So we have on the team currently 2 staff from Regional Transportation Council, 1 from County Public Works, 2 from the County Health Department, 1 from City of Vancouver, and 1 from Community in Motion. So it is really breaking down the barriers that we had and the silos between departments and communication. So we've really, we're beginning to make some inroads into better communication. So as transportation practitioners, better understand what the health department needs are and what they're what their goals are, and what sort of data analysis and mapping that they have available. So it's really been quite helpful. And so we will continue with this Walkability Action Institute meetings. And we've got a transportation action plan that we're trying to put into place. And one of the key features, we want to make sure that our decision makers, our elected officials, understand some of the work that we need to do to overcome some of the hurdles.
So I guess I'm still trying to understand this issue. Is the communication as far as policies, operations, project priorities?
I think it's more understanding what the goals are. I mean, we have a lot of shared goals. We want a healthier, safer community. We want to make sure that we use the staff most efficiently. And so where we can share information and share knowledge, it's very helpful.
So I'm thinking in terms, not only this plan update, but in a couple of years, or actually I think next year is kind of the initial launch of the comprehensive plan update, which I think is coming in 2025-ish. But that is going to, I'd like to have this plan feed that, because as I look at the outward growth, especially the lifting of the urban holding zone up along 179th Street. 179th is probably one of the least accessible routes, not very friendly unless you're driving a tractor, a truck, or a car, or pulling a horse trailer behind you. And it's basically, you got a lot of residential and not a lot of services, retail, or anything. So your trips pretty much are going to be aimed at the automobile. And so like to see more cohesive planning that goes into the comprehensive plan update, especially if they're going to be expanding the urban growth areas, so that it does factor in, like I live in an area that our house is almost considered aging in place ready, but our neighborhood's not. It's 1.5 miles to walk to the nearest bus stop. And so those type of things, I'd like to see more, and I'm not sure that's between county departments, but more between elements of the comprehensive plan.
I think the comp plan is a great opportunity. I don't have any obvious hurdles and why this doesn't happen that often, and then we're all in our own offices some days.
You might, and I have to turn to Jenna on this and her colleagues at Public Health, but in some instances, those hurdles are political or policy driven, especially in, during the pandemic when Public Health was issuing these emergencies, but the Board of Health, which is the county council, sometimes there were disconnects between what does that mean and how do you get people to out to appointments, or how do you get people to parks, or how, what does that mean? And so it's something that I'm hoping that we can work with the new county council as far as our constituency, which are adults, older adults in the county. They try to knock down those doors or walls.
Awesome. All right, with our last 4 minutes, I will hand it over to Jenna to see if she has anything she wants to say before we close out.
I just want to thank you all. That was a really it's really nice to be in a focus group where you all are working with each other on a regular basis already. Like that definitely reflected from the conversation. So it's been great to listen to. Thank you so much. I mean, I know there's a lot of transportation planning that already goes on, and appreciate the time to talk, specifically about the aging community. And I think, yeah, it's great information for Rose and her team to, I think, sort through to help pull into the updated plan. And I'm sure as we get more into it, we may have some follow-up questions for some of you. So you may be hearing from us again if we have specific questions for you. So
yeah, I also want to thank everyone. You will hear from us again, at least for the recording. These things, when they're up, you can forward. We're going to have a special kind of form for that couldn't attend today, participate in a similar online option. And then again, we'll be reaching out plan development, just make sure we're getting it right. You're the implementer, so make sure that we're getting it right. And then again, for those deep dive working groups in the new year. Yeah, we really, really appreciate everyone coming, and I'll give you back a couple minutes of your day.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you,
Thank
Jenna,
you. Thanks.
setting this up.
Thank you so much.